Hi and welcome to my channel. Was a cop in the early 80s in New York, starting out as transit, and then we had a merge of departments citywide in 95, where I became NYPD. So officially I'm an NYPD retiree. Had great years with transit. Had also good years with NYPD. I'm going to try to tell you a couple of stories to the best of my recollection, they occurred over 40 years ago. One thing that I will never forget, I had great partners. When you work in plain clothes and uniform as a rookie, and then later on for a couple of years, but mostly plain clothes. I'm estimating I did about 15 years in plain clothes. You're going to come up with some good stories, and you're going to come up with some good partners. And to this day, you know, some of them are my good friends, even though we're not together in the same city. I still consider them great friends, and I enjoy the times I reach out and they reach out, and it's once in a blue moon we get together, which is fantastic. You know, thinking of yourself as a 22-year-old ex-Marine rookie, working into an environment where the guys to your left and to your right, you know, are your partners. You don't have history. It's not like you grew up together. It's different from when you were in grade school, high school, even the beginning of college for me. It's totally different. You meet people, you're nice to them, they're nice to you, but life continues and you move on. When you work as a 20-year veteran of New York's law enforcement, you build up great relationships. And I'm going to tell you that I'm forever thankful that I met these guys, and I still keep in touch with the most I can. You know, some people obviously have moved to different towns. I don't have their numbers, or we lost track. Quite a few guys have passed away, unfortunately. So my channel is to try to share a little judgment and theory and war stories. I occasionally veer off, and I'm a New York Mets fan, and I occasionally veer off and I rave about my town, Port St. Lucie. But here we go. I'm a transit guy. Let me see. Yeah, I think this happened before the merge. I'm a transit guy in plain clothes working the train with a good partner, someone I keep in touch with. I'm going to try to keep as little names out of this as possible for whatever legal reasons may or may not come up. And also, you know, my recollection after 40-something years, I remember obviously the highlights. But I had a friend of mine recently remind me of more details to this story, because I said this story a couple times over the years, but I recently remember saying it to a friend of mine that lives in Pennsylvania, and I was telling him, look, man, I was on the train in plain clothes with a partner. Me and my partner split up. We were playing anti-crime, so that means we're looking for crimes. We're looking for low-level crimes. We're looking for high-level crimes. Whatever crime is going to happen on the subway during the midnight shift. And I'm sitting towards, I'm going to say maybe 8 to 10 seats from the beginning of the train car. Now, I was in these trains usually were 10 train cars long, usually. So I'm going to give you an estimate of maybe I was in the 6th car. I have to guess there. I know I wasn't in the very first car, and I know I wasn't in the very rear car. So let's say about the 6th car, I'm about 8 seats to 10 seats deep. Not a lot of people on the train. on the same car I am. My partner is in one of the corners, far corners, to my right as we're going northbound on the number 2 train. And one particular station, these 3 guys get on. 2 young men that look like they could have been, high school age maybe. They sit directly in front of me, and then a bigger, slightly older guy, maybe, mid-20s, or around that range, like I said, I'm guesstimating. He sits directly to my left. Now, mind you, I'll remind you, the train car, there wasn't that many people. There was no reason for them to sit directly to my left and directly in front of me, having I seen them get in the train together. They didn't get in the different doors like you would do normally if you're traveling and you're not related or you're not with somebody. They came in all the same and they targeted me. I can feel I'm the next victim. Now, I don't remember why I couldn't really make eye contact with my partner in the far left corner. I just know that I feel tension and stress when I'm being surrounded and something's gonna happen. And sure enough, this is the tension I felt. I felt I was gonna get mugged. So what I did was, I started raising my hand up to my face to kind of try to block the punch, because I can feel a punch with a fist or a gun was coming to my face to immobilize me. I can feel it. So I'm trying to play strategy without making it too obvious. But I must have made it, because in the couple of minutes that I'm putting a hand to my face, to me, it's kind of like a shield. To somebody else, it might say, "Oh, wow, he's scratching his temple, or he's touching his forehead for no reason." And like I said, the tension was big. As somebody that has dealt with thousands of arrests in my career, this was it. It was going down, and I was the victim. Usually, I play responding to that as an outside observer, and then I'm ready to pounce once the crime is committed. Mind you, no words were exchanged. They didn't say one word. They just sat in front of me and sat alongside me. And like I said, I remember thinking to myself, "Oh man, I'm gonna get it so bad. He's a big guy. He's gonna clock me really good. He might knock my ass out. He might." That's what's going through my head. That's why I made this, I was trying to make it invisible, but I couldn't make it invisible. Everybody can see it. I'm trying to block my face, kind of, Now, at some point during the train ride, you're going from one station to the other, the big guy decided and shook his head no. And I could see the no to the 2 guys in front of him, and they get off the next stop. So as soon as they get, just for you guys that have worked law enforcement before and listening to these facts, you're not the only one Monday morning quarterback in this situation. I Monday morning quarterbacked it. I'm Monday morning quarterbacked it right there on the train after the fact. I went up to my partner and said, "Holy shit, did you see that?" He goes, "Yeah, man. They were gonna fucking jack you, Juan. They were gonna jack you." He goes, "I had my gun. I was gonna shoot the first one. He came out with a gun and hit you. I was gonna shoot the first one." I was like, "Holy shit," because he felt the same thing I did, and he saw the same thing I did. Thankfully, he was in a better tactical position than I was. Mind you, we're both in plain clothes. It's not a totally empty car, like another story I'm going to tell you later on. But this one, we both felt it. I mean, like I said, they targeted me. If you've been on a subway, car, train for whatever reason, pleasure, going to business, going to work, whatever, you don't sit next to somebody else if there's a ton of seats everywhere else. And I'm talking about in the space of a subway car. I'm not talking about the whole train. There could have been 1,000 seats left in the whole train for all I know. I just know in my particular car, my particular universe at that time, during the midnight shift, these guys targeted me. I am so sure. When I talked to my friend, he said the same thing. He said, "Man, you were gonna get taken down, but I was there for you." And he reassured me that he saw what I saw, and he was also prepared to take action. Not a word was said during the whole transaction. I didn't say a word. They didn't say a word. You can just feel it. I'm making eye contact with the guys in front of me to make sure I got them in my view, but I can't really see the guy to my left without making it obvious that I'm watching him too. You know, I guess I could have moved away, even though I was sitting there first, even though there was plenty of seats. In my Monday morning quarterback theory, I could have probably moved away to see if he would have followed me. And then, you know, I was 99% sure I was going to get jacked. But if he would have followed me in the seat, you know, there'd be no questions asked. I'm reaching for my gun and shield, and let's talk about this, sir. But it didn't get that far because it was kind of like going from one subway station to another. You know, it could be, you know, a long 2 minutes. You know, it could be the subway stations at train speed. They come up pretty quick. I don't remember if it was one subway stop or two. So I'm gonna guess it was one, because if it would have been another subway stop, maybe somebody else would have got on. Even though late at night, you know, you got limited traffic on the subways. You know, they may or may not have been somebody in the next stop anyway. But to continue my story, they shake heads. The big guy shakes heads to the little guys. They're not little guys, high school kids maybe. And they're all male blacks, by the way. And they get off the train. Like I mentioned, I went up to Rob and I said, "Holy shit." And he goes, yeah. So they get off the train first. We get off the next stop, because now the 99% sure that I had that I was going to get jacked easily went up to 100% with Rob reaffirming my details that I felt. So we get off the next stop and say, this time we see him, we're going to challenge him, stop and frisk. You know, there's no reason to get off one stop and then get on the train the next stop, you know, without going downstairs and seeing your ma, your grandma, your aunt, whatever the good story is. So they decided amongst themselves that they were going to pick another victim, easier victims, maybe somebody that wasn't blocking his face. And it's funny because you can't hide blocking your face. You can be as, you know, non-committal as possible, but you're not blocking your face without them noticing, you know. And I was just trying to be tactical in what little space I had. I mean they hadn't said a word. I couldn't get up and challenge them and say, "Police, you know, let me see some ID, let me see your hands out of your pockets, let me see whatever." I couldn't really do that. I didn't have the probable cause for that, other than my tension and my stress and the way I felt, I felt I was gonna get jacked. So me and Rob get off the train, and now we're convinced this, as I mentioned earlier, we're convinced this is it. So now we decide, even though they got off a train before us, that we're gonna, you know, try to catch up with these guys somehow. We must have missed them by a stop. You know, they got off one stop. By the time me and Rob talked, the train moved on and we got off at another stop, going northbound. So me and Rob get off the train. We come up with a plan. We see these guys. We're gonna tackle them. Meanwhile, we listen to our radio and we hear guys fitting this description that we have in our minds because, of our close encounter, just rob somebody at gunpoint. And I'm like, oh man, that 100% just went up to 1,000%. If you're an undercover cop, a plainclothes cop, I wasn't undercover, I was plainclothes. Big difference. I don't infiltrate anything except I'm looking for crime. In plainclothes, on marked vehicles, on the subway, in the streets, wherever our journey takes us, we're looking for crime. So we're going, oh man, I can't believe that happened to somebody. I can't believe we were that close. But yet, I have to keep telling you, not a word was exchanged. It wasn't like they said, give me your wallet or give me your valuables, give me anything. There wasn't anything exchanged other than the nod to their, eat between each other and the shaking of their head and you reading into that, having experienced other scenes and other situations and other stakeouts, all those things go running through your mind. You're going, man, in the uniform patrol is out there. They're gonna take a report and they're gonna put out whatever description they can get, from the victim and put it over the air. And me and Rob were like, oh man, on one hand, you're so close. On the other hand, there wasn't really, in today's world, there wasn't really any probable cause. Tension, stress, situational awareness, prior experience, all those things that we have from working the streets and working the trains and working wherever, all those things that we had are not admissible in a court of law unless you're doing a background and you're talking about the officer's qualifications, but you don't get to officer's qualifications without explaining your probable cause. And I knew, having to go into court, quite a few hundreds of times, that it wasn't going to go over. I know it wasn't going to go over. Your Honor, or not even that far, state attorney, district attorney in New York, this is how I felt. I can sense it. I can feel it. It wasn't going to, I can see that it wasn't going to work because we had a okay relationship with the assistant district attorneys, as they were called in New York. We had an okay relationship with them, but it was their job to challenge the facts, listen to your facts, and then challenge them and make sense of what you're saying. So I haven't experienced all that. I said, there's no way. Me and Rob felt it because he felt it too, and he was just as hyped as I was about how close I was getting to be jacked on the train, to use Rob's expression. But anyway, it was great backup. Other times we work in 4, 6, 8-man teams. But then we would have overcrowded the train unless we split up in different cars, and then we acknowledged each other when we were going to get off, just so that we both got off also. Working nights, you tend to get a feel for the situation, get the feel for what's going to happen, the alertness of some people and the dullness of others that have spent the whole day at work, working 8, 10, 12-hour shift. Now they're dragging ass trying to get home so they can get some rest. Some people that party too much, they're on the train, they're struggling to be alert so they don't miss their stop, but you can see they're struggling, their body motion, their just general feeling. Your robbers, your muggers, they're amped. Just as I got amped to work my shift, and I got even more amped when I realized I was going to be the victim, and explaining Rob's amp as he was my backup in that situation. We're each other's backup, but I was going to be the victim, so he was my backup. And you can tell the young guys have a spring in their step as it is, but when they come out during the midnight shift shopping for victims, they're prepared to run a mile if they have to get away from the police or get away from the victim, if they choose the wrong victim. So they're shopping for victims. We're shopping for muggers and you know, offenders, crimes. We're shopping for them. They're shopping for us. You know, when we meet, there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of downplaying. You know, we have to play it off like we're not interested. We don't care what they're doing. We have to play it off. But it doesn't change the fact that we're looking for them and they're looking for a victim. Rarely does the mugger look for an undercover cop, a plainclothes cop. Rarely, because we're usually more fit. We're wearing a vest. We're bulky. I used to wear 2 sweatshirts on top of my vest, so I looked like I was wearing shoulder pads sometimes, and you try to disguise that by wearing, you know, lighter clothes. But then don't forget, in New York it's cold, you know, 8 months of the year, if not more. And so you can only go so much. If I'm on the train, I might even wear a loose fitting coat on top of all that, but I leave the coat open in most occasions. And just to have that little extra bulk, because you're okay in the subway car, but as soon as you get off and you get on that train station, you're cold. That wind spares no one. They don't care what you're doing for a living. That wind spares no one. That wind chill spares no one. It was brutal, but I was younger. I can tolerate it better. I was one of these people, my friends will tell you, I'm kind of A+, charge ahead type of guys. That's why some of my friends that were the same as me, we got along so well. We understood each other. We understood each other's motivation. We understood, you know, we all wanted to rise in the ranks of the department. We all wanted to grab those criminals that were preying on those, you know, poor people that were going to and fro work. You know, occasionally we got involved in tourist crime. If we worked at Lower Manhattan, or we worked, you know, some of the train lines that were mostly for tourists. You know, because traffic dies, as I mentioned earlier. Traffic dies as the workday, the traditional workday is over. So, you know, I'm not gonna stop saying it. I'm very thankful for the partners I had, and some of the partners I've lost. I didn't get to express a lot of that while I was working. You're young, you're headstrong, you're motivated to produce numbers. That's why you're in plain clothes. You're not there to look pretty in plain clothes. You're there to motivate numbers, and it was great. It was great experience. If you like that kind of stuff, hopefully I'm reaching out to a lot of cops that just stumble onto my channel, and you're wondering what this guy has to say about the 80s, being a cop in the 80s. I hope you like and subscribe. Thank you for staying to the end, and I hope you come back. I'll have more stories as we get closer to the year. Thank you, and